Breaking news for your home. Wayday is here. It's Wayfair's big sale, where you can score the best deals in home, like up to 80% off with free shipping on everything. Plus surprise flash deals all Wayday long. You won't find better deals for your home anywhere else. We're talking furniture, decor, rugs, and more, all at Wayfair, and all up to 80% off during Wayday. So don't wait. Shop Wayfair's Wayday now through April 27th to score the best deals in home.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lou Need, and today I have the honor of introducing a very special guest to the show, Dr. Tom Cowan. Dr. Tom is a visionary in alternative medicine with decades of experience in natural and alternative healing. He has 6 best-selling books challenging conventional views on viruses and cancer treatment. His latest passion, the methodologies.com, is a collaborative platform with leading doctors and scientists and just talking about biology discipline. And this aims to help colleagues provide much needed support for individuals with health concerns and using new biology methods. And I'm really excited to have him on here today to learn about some of those and then his expertise on how to attain and achieve a well-being. With no further ado, Dr. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to join you here.
I'm excited. Tell us, have decades of experience. Tell us about the shift to the new biology. What brought that on for you?
So I pretty much, in some ways inadvertently, but I guess it's just part of who I am. I got into medicine and started trying to figure out what that I learned or what that we were told or what that we all believe is actually true. And I found out that more and more of it isn't. And even some, I would say, pretty shocking things. So then I would start to write about it and talk about it. The first one was, we all believe, of course, the heart pumps the blood around the body. And I found out that's not true. And we heard that blocked arteries cause heart attacks. And I found out that's not true. And then I went on to look at vaccines and childhood illnesses, and turns out that vaccines are neither safe nor effective nor useful ever. And then I looked at cancer and genetics and found out that genetics, we are not run by DNA by any means, and cancer has nothing to do with genetics. And then I started looking at viruses, and I found out there's actually no such thing as a virus. They made that up. And then I started looking at all of the different things in medicine, and I found that we go about thinking about things in the wrong way. Because people could say, well, how could all these smart people get it all wrong? And that's because they made an assumption back 160 years ago or so, and sort of goes back before that. But all there is physical material, right? That's it. That was an assumption, but everything else had to follow from there. And then they forgot that the way that you look for material things determines to a large extent what you'll see. So when you forget those two things, you make mistake after mistake after mistake. So that's how I got to where I am now.
Interesting journey to this here. So let's talk about research that has been done, clinical research that has been done over the years. What's happening there if we're debunking a lot of the notions you mentioned?
Well, I mean, most of the clinical research is either flat out fraudulent or wrong or irrelevant. And it's because they make certain assumptions. So I can give you an example. Recently, there's a woman that I knew who, along with some other people, wrote an article on the difference between COVID shots, their immune system response, versus a natural infection, right? Mm-hmm. Seems like a reasonable topic for a scientific paper. And I wrote one of the authors who I actually knew well and said, how did you prove that a virus caused COVID in the first place? How did you know that this virus exists, right? SARS-CoV-2. And she wrote back saying, well, we assumed there was a virus and we assumed that the virus caused this disease, which, by the way, she couldn't define the disease either. And so that's not a scientific paper. That is a series of unproven assumptions, and which actually I would say disproven. And so it's basically, there's no science in that paper at all. In fact, if you look at the paper, the whole thing is mislabeled because all they were looking for is chemicals that are found in certain people who've been injected with unknown stuff versus people who were sick for unknown reasons. Mm. And oh my God, they found that the people who were injected with unknown stuff had different chemicals in their body than people who were sick for unknown reasons. And I mean, stop the presses. That's a ridiculous study.
I must ask, and you brought something up, and I'm curious about this one personally, about the cancer and how it's not genetic. There's a notion that it's a business, right? Pharmaceuticals a business. They want to prescribe medication, not really looking to get into the root of it, but more to just maintenance per se. Now, you're saying it's not genetic. Then it's environmental. Is it the things that we're consuming? What's your take on it?
So here, there's a lot of what we would call psyops in the world, or psychological operations that are meant to mislead people, right? The idea that there's these tiny invisible viruses that are supposed to bite you and make you sick, that's a scam. Basically, it's a psyop. But the biggest one of all, as far as health and medicine, is the symptoms that people have are diseases. That is the biggest psyop of all. Let me give you an example, and then I'll get to cancer. So I'll ask you questions because I think you'll be able to see it then. If you get a splinter in your finger and you don't take it out, what happens next?
You get infected.
You get pus. You don't get infected. That's a conclusion. So let's stick to what we actually see. Your body makes pus, right?
Trying to push it out. Yep. It's a foreign object.
So is the pus, is that a disease called an infection, or is that your body's therapeutic attempt?
It's an attempt to push it out and heal it. So it's a symptom.
Right. So that pus is made by your body to accomplish some strategy towards healing. You agree?
Agree.
Okay. Now let's do another example. Person breathes in splinters, i.e. pollution and dust and whatever. So they got a bunch of debris in their lungs, and then they make cough and mucus and have a fever and feel bad. Is that the body's attempt to get the stuff out of their lungs, or is that a disease called bronchitis?
Its body's rejecting what's in there, trying to heal, trying to get balance, back in balance. Yeah.
Right. So now we have two examples of how conventional doctors misinterpret that situation. They say you have a disease called bronchitis. It's caused by a virus or a bacteria. I stop you from coughing, keep this crap in your lungs, and you'll be fine. Right?
But long term, there are consequences long term. Back to that splinter, which is a great example. You don't remove the splinter. You kind of let it pus. You don't treat it. Long term, it will have consequences, and that could lead to eventual infection.
No, it will get it out.
On its own, it will release it, and you will avoid an infection.
There's no infection.
Without any help, without any
Yes.
Okay, so
the splinter is the disease. The pus is the therapy. You breathe in debris. The debris is the disease. The bronchitis is the therapy. There's no infection. Your body uses bacteria to help to remodel the tissue, to get rid of dead and dying tissue. Mm-hmm. There is no possibility that the bacteria itself make you sick. And by the way, if you disagree with that, you're going to have to show me a study that shows that inhaling or exposing people to pure bacteria makes well people sick. And I guarantee you there's no such study in the medical literature. None. So that is a disproven hypothesis. Now, let's get to cancer, because the principle is your body will always do what it can to promote healing. So let's say you have a house, right? Most people have houses. And somebody puts a load of garbage in the foyer of your house, right? What would you do?
Remove it.
What would you do first? Put it in a bag.
Part of the process, yeah.
Or a can or something, right? You put it somewhere. And then you would take it to the garage, and then you take it out to the dump or the garbage removal, and then it would be done, right? That's how it works. Now, what if they kept putting more and more garbage in? You get more and more bags, and then you eventually can't take it all out to the garage. So you put it in the garage, and then your spare bedroom, and then the living room, and then the bedroom, and then the kitchen, and then you move out of the house because it's full of garbage, right? Does that sound right? So let's say we put garbage into your body. Now, that garbage could be toxic thoughts, bad feelings, trauma, glyphosate, electromagnetic fields, environmental pollution. There's thousands of different poisons you can put in your body. So what would your body do? It would put it in bags to sequester it so it doesn't poison your entire being. Then it would try to dissolve it and eliminate it, which is what we erroneously call infection, right? So it would try to get it out through the lungs or the skin. We call that eczema, but it's your body's way of trying to get it out. We would have diarrhea. That's your body's way of pooping it out. You might vomit. That's your body's way of getting it out. But the doctors, in their wisdom, they stop you from doing that. They plug up your diarrhea, stop you from vomiting, stop you from coughing it up. They put creams on your skin so you don't get eczema. They keep it in you. The garbage builds up, and your body says, wait a minute, I keep trying to get it out, but this guy won't let me. I'm going to sequester it in a bag. That's called a tumor. Now, then they say, oh, see, it's all full of toxic shit and it doesn't look right. And it doesn't. And the reason I started thinking about this is they say, okay, here's these cancer cells, right? And they're all misshapen and they got weird number of chromosomes called aneuploidy. And they don't respect their neighbors and all that. They're these weird cells. And I thought, what if somebody took a car and smashed the windshield and put the brakes in the back seat and cut the gas line and everything? And I said, by the way, this car runs twice as fast as a normal car. You would say, I don't think so. But they tell you that this disturbed, distorted, aneuploid cancer cell, that grows twice as fast as the normal cell. I don't think so. And then they say it crawls from, like, your garbage didn't crawl from the foyer or the garage to your spare bedroom, right? You had more garbage, so you put it in a new place. The cancer tumor cells, they say, spread through the bloodstream, they swim and go from your breast to your liver, right? That's what they say. So you go to your oncologist, say, I got a tumor in my breast. He says, yeah, it could spread to your liver. Can you show me the cells in the bloodstream on the way to the liver? Right? It's a perfectly reasonable question. No. Why not? There's not enough to see. We can't see them in the bloodstream. Have you ever seen them in the bloodstream? No. How do you know they're in the bloodstream? Well, how else did it get to the liver? Besides, how did it get from your spare bedroom to the kitchen? It must have flown or crawled or swam from one place to another. This is nonsense. Basically, more and more garbage, more and more bags. It's got nothing to do with genes. The whole theory of genetics itself is baloney. Here's how I know. They say one gene makes one protein, right? That's what they say. So then they do the Human Genome Project. They said 200,000 proteins, 20,000 genes. Say, wait a minute. Don't you guys know arithmetic? Like there's 180,000 missing codes for the proteins. Where are they? Well, it's BS. Then they say the code you have, the DNA, that's your code for who you are. Then it turns out the DNA changes all the time. Then it turns out your liver has different DNA than your spleen and your kidneys and your eyes, obviously, because if something is coding and your eyes you never make an eye in your leg, so the code is different. Mm. And it turns out you can even do experiments with mice or flatworms, cut off their head, expose them to different fields, electromagnetic fields, and they'll grow either no heads, one head, or two heads, showing that the code is not even in the worm.
Interesting.
Think about that.
Yeah.
We have proven the code for making the proteins that make up you, it's not even in you. It's in the field around us. Sheldrake calls that the morphogenic field. I don't know if that's right. And we don't necessarily know all the details, right? Because it's complicated. But I know it's not in DNA. And by the way, I'll stop talking here in a minute. If you ask doctors, like, how do you know there's DNA in a living cell? Like, who came up with that proof? Do you know the answer to that? Yeah. Which is interesting. And I'm not picking on you, but you get people who say, do you think DNA is the code for life? Yes. Do you think DNA is in the nucleus? Yes. Do you think DNA is a double helix? Yes. If you ask them, okay, who proved that DNA is a double helix? Do you know that?
What did he say?
Watson and Crick. They made a paper in 1953 Nature. They said, let's assume that the DNA molecule twists every 8 angstroms. If it does, then it's a double helix. And I read that and I thought, there's not a measurement in the whole paper. They didn't measure it. They made it up in their mind.
So what are some of the alternatives, key principles that you advocate for then?
Well, if everything your body's doing is towards healing, then everything we should do as a doctor would be to support what your body's doing. If your body wants to make mucus and make a cough, you help the person get the mucus out of their lungs and make it run better. It's called demulcents. You work with, if you're eliminating things through your skin, that's good, but it's caused you itching, eczema, it breaks down your skin. It's annoying. If you don't want that to happen, you stop putting things in your body which it has to eliminate. I mean, that's obvious, right? How many doctors say, well, the reason the eczema is coming out, the reason you have a rash, the reason you have a cough, the reason you're making tumors is you're putting stuff in there that your body doesn't want.
A lot of times it's unknown.
It may be unknown, but there are ways to figure it out. And even if you don't know what the particular thing is that you're excreting, you could just open the excretion pathways. It's very easy to do that. And it will help your body get rid of things. And that's what it's trying to do. And so you're actually working with how nature was intended to heal. We have these amazing instruments called a human body. And if we just treat it right and use the principles on which it was formed and not these imaginary things that are made up to baffle you into thinking you don't understand and you're a victim of your DNA. You go to a doctor, there's 3 reasons you got sick: bad luck, bad genes, or a virus. That's it. So you're a victim. Get over it. Just deal with it. You don't have any agency in this. You didn't do anything. It's not all that ice cream and that bad relation with your spouse and that you were traumatized and abused and eat crappy food all day. None of that. You got bad genes. Thanks for coming.
Let's talk about the new biology trends, how it's transforming the future of healthcare.
Well, I don't know that it is. We hope that it is. We can't build a healthy society with people who can't think straight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what medicine is. They make up stuff, and then when that thing that they made up is falsified, right, proven to be incorrect, they add another layer of nonsense to the story. Let me give you an example. They made up that there was these invisible particles called viruses. They said in the beginning, early 1900s, everybody who was exposed to the virus got sick. That's what they said. But then they saw people who they said had a viral illness, and not all of them got sick, right? So that falsified the claim. So what do they do then? They could have thrown away the claim. Turns out there is no particle called a virus, and the whole thing was nonsense. Or they could invent, well, some people are immune to the virus. So now we have a second layer of nonsense called the immune system. Then then that goes on. So that's why you get sick and the other doesn't. You have a good immune system. What is the immune system based on? It's based on antibodies, right? You have antibodies to the virus, because then they said antibodies mean you're immune for life from the virus, right? That's what they say. So you get measles, that's a virus. You get measles antibodies, you're immune for life. You get chickenpox, you get antibodies, you're immune for life, except if you get shingles and then you lost your immunity. And then you get the flu virus, and then you get antibodies, and then you're immune. But that only lasts a year, because the flu virus is a smart virus, and it knows how to evade the antibodies. And so that only lasts a year, and then you have to get a new flu shot. And then came HIV. And then they said, and I still remember when I heard this, so you get this virus, and then you make antibodies, right? And that's how we know you have the virus. But now the antibodies mean the virus is going to kill you. And I remember hearing that 1984, that's the year I graduated medical school. I just spent 4 years learning that if you have antibodies, you are immune. And Robert Gallo gets on the television and says, if you have HIV antibodies, that means the virus is going to kill you. And I thought, shit, who changed the rules? I just thought that if you have antibodies, that means you're immune, right? That's what they told us. Now they tell you that if you have antibodies, oh, you're going to die from the virus. That makes no sense.
How do we maintain well-being?
Well, the first thing you realize is everything you're being told in conventional medicine is nonsense.
Take it with a grain of salt, yeah? So how do we go about?
So that helps you not be, interesting that a friend of mine, Daniel Ritis, wrote a book called Can You Catch a Cold? And there was 200 studies that have published in the medical literature where they exposed people with cold or flu symptoms to well people. None of them got sick. The only exception, about 2% of the studies, were people who were convinced that they would get sick if they were exposed to somebody. So, in other words, if you believe in this stuff, if you believe in your genes are going to kill you, if you believe that viruses are out to get you, if you believe you have an immune system, which you don't have a clue what that means, if you believe this stuff, you are playing the victim, and that is the number one health risk of all. So if you can stop doing that by actually thinking, like, is this make sense? Which it doesn't, then you're halfway there. That is the best wellness tip anybody can possibly give you. Now, then you could decide, well, I'm not going to poison myself, and I'm going to get out in the sun and connect with the earth and have good relations with my friends and not think toxic thoughts. And then I'm going to eat real food, and I'm going to do some movement, and I'm going to sleep well, and I'm not going to put an EMF device on my body 24 hours a day. And there's a whole lot of other things you can do. But it all starts with this stuff that I'm thinking isn't right. That's the new biology.
I like it. Yeah, gotta watch what you're feeding your mental, what's going in, garbage in, garbage out. And it sounds like that we have total control of it, but we are unaware of that power.
We have a lot more power and agency and sovereignty than we think. And, a friend of mine put it very succinctly, the only disease there is victim consciousness. I didn't do anything. It's got nothing to do with me. It's nothing to do with the way I grew up. It's got nothing to do with my relation, nothing to do with the way I eat, nothing to do with me. I'm just a victim. If you believe that, then you are going to suffer the consequences because they will play you for the victim.
Yeah, and I've seen it play out in so many scenarios as well.
Right.
Let's talk about some of the principles you put in place to actually get to that space of well-being, particularly some stuff that you like to do in the morning to kind of set the tone for the day.
Right. I'm definitely a sort of ritual sort of guy. I do the same things a lot of people do, but I was thinking, because I saw the name of your podcast, that what is my morning ritual? So I wake up around somewhere between 5 and 5:30 because we have animals and gardens and everything. The first thing I do is I drink a capful of seawater, which we sell in our store. It's basically like Quinton, and it's a seawater that's in a continual vortex. So it's basically all the minerals in the sea that are in a continual vortex, and the water is sucked out and cold filtered, and it's great stuff. So that's the first thing I do. The next thing is I prepare the food for our 4 cats. And we make them fresh food, which is basically rabbit and elk or venison and chicken liver. So I cut it up and heat it just so it's not refrigerator cold. And then I give that to them, and they're usually crawling around my legs. And then I do something which I would highly advise for everybody, which is I put a pot of water in the coldest place of the refrigerator, and I put that into a bucket, sort of a big bowl, and I wash my face in it 5 times, essentially dunk my face in ice cold water 5 times every morning after I feed the cats. And I actually heard this from a guy named Goethe, who said that he did it his whole life, basically. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard. And there's some interesting information about that. It actually, first of all, wakes you up for sure. Yeah. And I think it stimulates this sort of regenerative parasympathetic response, which is a good way to start the day. So that's the next thing I do. Then I have a half liter of water, usually cold, because I like cold water, that sometimes I add different things to it, a little bit of minerals, sometimes a little bit of chlorine dioxide, depending on how I'm feeling, or lemon juice. Mm-hmm. And then I take the very few kind of medicines that I take. One is Strophanthus, which is our main sort of heart tonic. Not that I have a heart problem, but I've been taking it for 20 years because people said it would kill me, and apparently it didn't. So I keep taking it. And then I use tissue salts. So I choose whatever tissue salt I think is appropriate. And that's pretty much all the supplemental things that I take. And then sometimes I'll check email and make sure there's nothing important that I need to know. And then we go out and feed the animals. And I like to do that barefoot, as long as it's not too cold. Yeah. And we open the gates and give them water. And we have 4 goats and 4 chickens, and give them hay and spread some food. And then we go and feed the cats in the barn, the ones that don't come inside. And so that happens next. And then we have built a timber frame hut on our property. And I go there and I do about 15 minutes of of primal movement exercises.
Mhm.
So that's the next thing. Then I do about 5 minutes of a Tibetan crystal singing bowl. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they make this noise. And I use the one that's tuned to my heart chakra at, I think it's F, but I'm not sure about that. And then I'm done. Then I go back and eat breakfast, which is usually 2 eggs from our garden, from our chickens, and vegetables from our garden. I make sourdough bread, and we have raw butter, and then I have olive leaf tea, and then I'm go about my day.
Yeah, I love the piece about the cold water therapy with your face. That actually helps keep you younger as well, looking younger as well,
Yeah, I
stimulating.
think it's good for your face too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Face.
I've heard it. It's similar to a dunking your whole body in ice cold
Yes.
water. That kind of jolts you up, wake you up, make you really comfortable with being uncomfortable, essentially.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've been doing that for almost 10 years.
Wow.
Every morning I do that.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then connecting with nature, barefoot. I love walking barefoot as well. We do have a garden. We do something similar to that. But yeah, getting
The
close
other thing
to
that I
nature.
do is, and I have this cat Pumpkin, and he prompts me a lot. He loves to sit in the garden with me, often on my lap, under the catnip plant.
Hmm.
And so we will often sit for about 10 minutes. And it's interesting because I don't know if this is true, because I may be anthropomorphizing, but he only really relaxes once I take my glasses off. If I have my glasses on, he's fussing, and if I take my glass off, he'll sit right there. And I think there's something really good about getting sunlight on your eyes first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
So I think
I've heard that
Pumpkin
too.
knows best. So I
It's
do what
teaching you.
Pumpkin tells me.
Yeah, teaching you. Thank you for sharing that. How do we connect with you? How can we find you? I know you have Dr. Cowan's garden. Where do we find you online?
Yeah, the main website is drtomcowan.com. And then we have a newbiologyclinic.com. So Dr. Tom Cowan is the talks and the products that we use. The clinic is how you become a member and start working with practitioners who treat people like that. We have people who do emotional freedom. We have people who do biofield tuning. We have Pat who does primal movement classes and coaching with people. We have a nutritionist who helps people figure out how to eat. And then these 4, soon 5 doctors. So that's the newbiologyclinic.com. And then we have a curriculum where basically we go over heart disease, cancer, genetics, viruses, how to eat, what the medicines I use. And so people sign up for that. And it's like a 12-week course, or maybe 18. Not sure.
Very nice. Tom, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
It's been an honor.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,